Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 130 of RickCast. I am here with you tonight where you can hear my ridiculous takes and make fun of them if you'd like. It's your opinion. It's up to you. It's the internet. You're going to do it anyway. So we're going to have a good time tonight. We have some things to talk about. Do we? The MAGA Civil War that has commenced. I actually think the MAGA Civil War is more important than the Iranian conflict that is taking place. A lot of people are focusing on the Iranian conflict and they're kind of mixing in the MAGA Civil War into it like one big political cupcake or cake or any kind of pastry parfait, right? To quote Donkey from Shrek, everybody likes parfait, so maybe just a big parfait of politics. But I actually think they're separate. Yes, right. Took us 130 episodes to finally get here, and here we are. I don't know how to keep this that one, so whatever. Hopefully it'll stay for now on. But the fact of the matter is, I think the MAGA Civil War is more important and will have a longer range or have a longer lasting impact on our political discourse than the Iranian conflict, whether we do or don't go in. And we'll talk about the MAGA Civil War first. Then we'll talk about the Iranian conflict, whether it will or will not happen. This just in, right before we came on, Trump called a lid. So he's not speaking for the rest of the night, which is, I don't know if that's really going to happen. Trump's at like 11:30 is going to fire off a tweet or something. Guy can't stay quiet for that long. Really? You're going to try and keep him quiet. He's like, I got to speak. I got to talk to the people. I got to talk to him now. So we'll see if that lid will hold on. So the most of this show will be about the MAGA Civil War. Most of the show will be about the Iranian conflict because yes, they are connected, but I find they are two separate issues, and everybody's kind of just shoving them together. Yep, we have that. We are going to talk about that. That is a one of our warm-up stories, Michael. Before we get into the big stories of the day, there's this show will cover the coming AI apocalypse more than anybody else. Everybody else is focused on other things. We're going to talk about the AI apocalypse. This show, News from the Pew, two shows that I'm actually on, will cover these actual things. There is a story that Amazon actually says it's going to reduce its workforce with AI as the actual AI replaces human employees. So it's actually starting to happen, right? It's actually starting to take place a lot faster than people realize. And speaking of AI, Disney is going after the site Midjourney for copyright infringement. This is kind of the last gasp that the entertainment industry can do as far as going after AI companies before they just accept their own fate. And then they just say, all right, we're going to be the Disney AI, Disney Tube, right? Just because I'm an idiot. I can't think of anything else, right? Disney Tube, where you can sign in and pay $3.99 a month and you can generate any story you want with the Disney characters. And then you go to Universal Tube and do the same thing, or, whatever the case may be. So we'll see how that goes in that regard. But we do have a bunch of stories to get into as the bar rats assemble. If you've never been a part of the show before, if you are a member of the audience or a member of the show, because you really are, your comments, your questions, no matter if it's on Getter, Instagram, Rumble, Kick, YouTube, it makes the show better because it gives me other places to go and things that I didn't think about. Or in Michael's case, it highlights things that I'm going to talk about and it reminds me. So your involvement in the show is crucial because it's just me. So if you guys can help me by commenting and letting me know what's working, what's not working for you as far as narratives and stories and analysis or things that you want to dive into, let me know in the comment section. Get involved. Do me a favor as well. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell wherever you can to help the show grow right now. And if you can, share the show wherever you can to help increase viewership. And we will make this show as big as it's going to be with you guys. That's it. Lou, you're on time. You're here, Lou, so we can start. Lou's one of our solid bar rats. Lou knows when I call her a bar rat, that's actually not that's not an insult. It's a compliment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody's kind of filtering in. So let's get to we'll get to one story that is coming up, or that kind of just broke before before the show actually started. And that is the story about the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem.
Breaking news just into CNN. Sources say Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem this afternoon has been taken to the hospital. I want to go straight to CNN's Priscilla Alvarez. Priscilla, what are you learning about this?
Phil, we're still trying to gather details. What we know so far is that the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, was transported by ambulance on Tuesday to a hospital in Washington, D.C. One source telling our colleague Holmes Librand that she has been conscious at the hospital and has spoken to her security detail. We have also reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for any comment or additional details about what transpired here. So again, so far we know only that she was transported to a D.C. area hospital by ambulance. Today, we are still trying to learn more about her condition, though a source did say that she is conscious and she has spoken to her detail, Phil.
So Kristi Noem has now had 2 incidents. She's the only one of any of the other cabinet members that has actually had some kind of, remember she got stuff stolen from her at a restaurant in D.C. Maybe they should put a lid on her. First of all, I can joke about this because she's okay. But secondly, the fact of the matter is, this is the second time when she's been out in D.C. that something's happened to her. Maybe she should just get DoorDash and hang out at her house, because it does not seem like she is doing too well outside of it. Allergic reaction. Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin confirmed it with Just the News, stating that the secretary was alert and recovering. She had an allergic reaction. Like, to what? To like shellfish? What kind of food did you go to? My brother Dean, how are you, my friend? It's good to see you. What kind of food are you eating at your age? And this is not an age thing. I'm 43. I know what I'm allergic to and what I'm not allergic to. Right? Yeah. She needs to be careful with those pictures with the guns. But yeah, if at what point, and don't they have food testers? I guess the lower executive branches don't get like food testers. Can't you find like an intern in the summer to like taste the food beforehand or something? Don't they do that? If not, she should get one. She should get one, or she should just DoorDash everything, or hire a chef. Hire a chef and don't leave the house, because either that, your stuff's going to get stolen, you're going to get sick. It's just not a good time for her. So once again, we are happy that Kristi Noem is okay, but at the same time, it's kind of just groan-inducing. Interns work is whatever they say it is. Intern work is whatever they say it is. It's not, you know how they get away with it, Michael? Because they always have this thing as other duties as assigned. You've probably had that kind of job before. It's like, oh yeah, you got to do this, that, and the other thing, and other duties as assigned. So, yeah, right. Make a sandwich. Go make them a sandwich. That's what they need to be doing. So, first one, she's okay. That's all we know for now. We got a couple of warm-up stories before we get into the show. First one, 6-foot alligator found lurking outside Virginia motel room. Yeah, police were called to a motel in Virginia where witnesses reported seeing an alligator lurking outside the guest's room. I mean, and people, are we not descendant of people that fought like the woolly mammoth? How did we become so fake and so weak? Fairfax County Police said an officer responded to the Budget Host Traveler Motel in Alexandria. So if you're staying at the Budget Host Travelers Motel, you should be happy you're getting that it was an alligator and it wasn't a crack dealer, outside your motel room. If you're staying at the Budget, if you're staying there, buddy, you're getting what you pay for. Just be happy that it was, they sent out the alligator that time and it wasn't the actually, the other type of people that you could find there. So very interesting. Just kind of shows that most American or most human beings at this point wouldn't survive a week without modern conveniences. Just because they're like, oh, it's an alligator. It's like, sweet, this is an alligator. I guess they do go that far north. I mean, I don't know the patterns of alligators. But I know DC is a swamp. I mean, there's a reason why they call it the swamp, because it's built in. DC is built in a swamp, so maybe. But I don't know the actual migrating patterns of said alligators. All right. Last, right? That'd be pretty sweet. Like, hey, honey, take a picture. There's an alligator outside. We're staying at the budget hotel. We're getting a show. This is fantastic. It was awesome. People in Louisiana are like, oh, you guys do not see alligator. We see them all the time. Yeah, every person from Louisiana, I'm sorry, you're all the chef from The Little Mermaid. That's all you're getting from me. So sorry about that. Second warm-up story before we dive into the show right now. This is we talked about this before. There was another. Oh yeah, it was when assistants. Oh, it was with Karine Jean Lesbian when she came out with her book because she switched sides. Poor girl's like, oh, nobody remembers me anymore because of the war. Yeah, it's because you're a loser anyway. When she came out with a book, she was writing while she was in office. KBJ, Kangina Brown Jackson. She has $2 million in income from last year from her quote unquote memoirs. You should not be able to write a book while you're in government office. It's that simple. And you shouldn't be able to write a book for 5 to 10 years. I think it should be 10 years to dissuade these kind of nonsense. If you serve in any capacity in the executive branch, or if you serve in the executive branch, or even if you serve in Congress, I don't care. You don't get to write a book about it for 10 years. It's that simple. If your stuff is that, because all of these people get ghost written anyway. So let's be real. Kangina Brown Jackson did not write her book. Somebody else wrote the book for her. They paid that person probably like $150,000. That person interviewed KBJ for like 3 hours, wrote a memoir. Happens more often than you think. You could actually do that. There are companies that could write a memoir for you. They would do the exact same thing. They'll fly out to you. They'll interview you for like 2 days, and then they'll write a book about it. So I don't think anybody in government should be allowed book deals. It's that simple. Well, it's anti-capitalist. I don't care. I don't think you should be in government. And I know I must be super naive, the naivete of myself, and that's okay, in this thinking that if you're in government, you shouldn't be making money off of that. Because why are you there in the first place? Most people are there to get rich. Most people go to Washington, D.C. to make money. Very few actually care about you or me or government or anything else. They want to make sure they get theirs. And on the left, they want to get theirs and, push political change. But on the right, it's all about making money. It's all about just going in, getting your job, getting your paycheck, making some friends, getting ready to work on K Street or another lobbying firm after, or write a couple books, and then you're on Easy Street for the rest of your life. It should not be a path. Government should not be a pathway to wealth. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. And the founders, whether you like them or not, they warned against it. They didn't want you to do such a thing. So, yeah, just further proof that government officials should not be allowed in any way, shape, or form to advance off of their quote unquote service. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We are going to talk now about what I think is the more important story out of the two. There are two main stories that have come out today. Yeah, there's other things that have happened, but let's be real. Everybody's talking about these two things. The first thing is the MAGA Civil War that is taking place right now. And the second one is the reason for said civil war, and that is the Iran military intervention, conflict, whatever you want to call it, in that regard. And so the Iran, let's bring this article up. I knew where I was going to be able to find it, but at National Review of all places, brings up a very interesting question. Are we witnessing an American first crack up? Right? Michael Brendan Doherty, these people over here have been waiting for something like this for a while. So it doesn't shock me that these people are ready to pounce on it. But just because they have a biased point of view does not mean they're completely wrong. Doesn't mean they're completely out of pocket in this case. And so this article starts, not yet. One thing that attracted certain voters to Trump was his willingness to condemn the Iraq war as a mistake and to implicitly promise not to get involved in more regime changing wars. And when I'm talking to people online, I talk to a really nice, talk to an account that I go back and forth with all the time. I think his name's Cobra Commander. Good dude from what I can tell. Never had a problem with him. His sentiment is, and I think he's an ex-military guy. I'm not, so you can put that on the table however you want. It's not neither good or bad for either one, but that is perspective. He's like, everybody's got to chill out because we're not going to war. We're not going to war. Relax. And I respond, I'm like, yeah, I get it. In my humble opinion, everybody's just kind of bamboozled with it. Just seems, and let me know if you agree with this wherever you're listening. Do you agree with this statement? The tone and how everything is unraveling seems far different than past issues. Like when the things with North Korea were happening, none of us were worried about a conflict with North Korea. Right? We were like, all right, this idea it's going to be fine. This, I don't know. For me, and I could be wrong, and I hope, let me first say this, I hope I am incorrect on this feeling. I hope I am. I hope I'm just falling for whatever glitz and glamour, being bamboozled. I'd rather be bamboozled and not in war than say with a definitive stance, we are not going. And he said, and this is not to throw shade at him, I'm just using him as an example of a larger narrative base of people that he's like, we're not going to war. You have to be tough with the Iranians, which I get. I understand where he's coming from. This is not me putting him on blast. I think he has some very valid points. You have to talk tough with the Iranians because they're bad people, blah, 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 blah. And I say blah, 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 because I can't remember the rest of the tweet. And I get it. But for some reason, this just feels off. He went from a guy that he was the peace president, the guy who stood on the CNN stage. He says, I just want people to stop dying. All of this kind of stuff to, complete and total surrender. We have control of the skies. We have control of all these other kinds of things. And people just are not. It just seems different. There's this air of inevitability around it. And then you have the Christian Zionists and the establishment neocons led by Mark Levin, who are just full-throated demanding that we get involved in this conflict. This conflict, which I believe Trump, and I'll say this now, I believe Trump didn't want to get into. I'm going to give Trump that pass, and I think he didn't want to do this. I think the Israelis got off the chain and they initiated this attack to force the United States in. I truly believe that because they've, decided, because we talked about it yesterday. Bibi was saying they have the bomb now. And then 2 days later, they may have a bomb in 12 months. Like they're lying, but they've desperately had Iran in their crosshairs for so long, along with the neocon establishment in DC. They're one and the same. And it just seems that they are trying to literally overpower Trump at this point and force him into this conflict. And that's why you have people like Tucker and others coming out and Trump rebuking them so hard, because I think no matter how strong you are as a personality, you can eventually be whittled down. So it's the idea that the man that many of us voted for as the peace president and believed to be the peace president, and the guy who said, I want people to stop dying, I don't want them to die anymore, is now on the verge of going into a country that's bigger than Western Europe, a country that has a population, I think, of 90 million people in it. A mountainous terrain that is not, it's not going to be Iraq or any of these other places. And so it just seems that this is something that there's two, and we'll talk about that more when we get into the Iran thing. But I'm trying to set the stage more here for the the breakup. So a significant portion of the right has returned to its native skepticism of government's ambitions, even when they come from the Department of Defense. It was a natural position most of the right after the Spanish-American War and World War I. It was, as Sam Tenaris reminded us in his biography, the position of William F. Buckley in the run-up to the Second World War. There's been a little drama at the edge of the coalition this week, as diplomats talk with the Iranian government have been interrupted by Israeli strikes on that government, including some of the conversation partners. President Trump, adopting quickly, effectively endorsed the Israeli strikes and almost implied that the Israelis were acting as America's junkyard dog in the negotiations. Now, I think that was a pivot by Trump to gain control of the situation, because I do think that the Israelis went off without, he told them not to go, and they went. So now his coalition is up in arms. Like, what are we doing? What do we do? Why are we even talking about amassing a strike? Why is Trump even saying this? Is the same Trump that in his first term, when the Iranians shot down a drone, he pushed back on John Bolton blowing up Iran back then. What has changed? What has changed in this regard? I think that's what people are trying to ask. So now a slice of the Trump supporting right is now critical of the president. If you are asserting conspiracy theories about Israeli control over the president, I don't think the Israelis have control over the president. I think they launched the strikes to try and force his hand into it. Others assert that Israel has humiliated Trump by killing some of the very people the American delegation was dealing with. And others still suspect that Israel, having launched its campaign against the government of Tehran, will inevitably cajole the United States to join it. That is my opinion. So people are saying, oh, it's not a great, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. There's no reason for this to be America's war. Ironically, many opponents of U.S. involvement in the Middle Eastern war share the premise of supporters of intervention. Common assumption is that America really can and should control events in the region. One side said we must get involved to aid Israel. The other side says we must get involved to restrain. The latter camp takes for granted that President Trump could simply have ordered Netanyahu not to attack Iran. I think he did, and I think the Iranians went anyway. I think the Iranians did it anyway. That's the problem. The Iranians will blame us for Israel's actions no matter what, so we should have prevented Israel. I think that's a problem. So Michael writes, I agree. What we're seeing in the Middle East right now is predictable consequence of foreign policy class recognizing our limits in the regions, beginning with the limit of involvement. So polling on the Middle East issue is all over the place. It's really not. Most within the MAGA movement are not in favor of it. Most of us are not in favor of intervention with Iran. Most of us don't want to go back to the Middle East. Republicans simultaneously report that they do not trust the Iranians to keep their word, and that they hope the United States does reach a diplomatic settlement with the Iranian nuclear question. If you ask the public whether they favor strikes to keep the nuclear weapons out of the hand of the Iranians, they endorse that too. That's without any sacrifice or risks. Americans are reliably in favor of positive sum game. The majority of Trump voters do not support the U.S. joining in Israel's war. And Trump, you have to give him credit. He does have his people watch social media, and he wants to gauge the crowd, which is why his rebuke of Tucker was so was very shocking to many in this MAGA movement, because some of Trump's biggest supporters, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and others, have stood up and said, you can't do this. This is not an America First policy. And I think the thing that really are glossing over is the fact that Trump has essentially classed America First to be whatever he wants. He even said in that article in The Atlantic, America First is whatever I want it to be, which means as of the moment he said that, he does not care about the public sentiment anymore. That's my opinion. The moment that his lips said, America First is whatever I deem it to be because I came up with it, which is ridiculous in and of itself. But when he makes that statement, a president that has his ear to the ground of social media effectively does not care what social media thinks of him anymore. The long-range repercussions of Trump ignoring his base and launching, I would even dare say, supporting the Israelis and some kind of operation in Iran will be the death of the MAGA movement. It will fracture because the people who loved Trump as the outsider that he supposedly painted himself as, the man who criticized military involvement, who said in a tweet back in 2011, 2012, that the only reason Obama was going to go into Iran is because he was a terrible negotiator, is now turned around and said, we need total surrender. We have total control of this, guys. And we'll get into that more and more when we actually talk about the Iran conflict situation coming up. And I think a lot of us are just worried that this coalition is pretty much over. Not that I really cared about the coalition, because the coalition became more LGBT, pro-abortion type of things that, we as Catholics and evangelical Christians even are not big fans of. And it became more Protestantized and more, it seems like, and I think this is a product of just being in politics so long. The longer you're in politics, the longer politics shapes you. Right? The longer you're in politics, the longer politics shapes you, and politics are eventually shaped. Trump's been in politics for 10 years. It'll be 8 as president and 12 as a candidate for public office. And eventually those, what you say one time, you can eventually be molded to in another. And that's what we're really looking at this. So it is disappointing to watch. And I think it goes beyond. Some people are saying, hey, this is a necessary conversation. It's okay to have this. And I get it, because the supposed MAGA coalition is so diverse that these things are going to happen. But I think the majority of people in the MAGA coalition could agree on one thing, and that is no wars. No wars, especially in the Middle East. We don't want to be involved in the Middle East, and support for Israel, as we talked about yesterday, is very divisive. In the older generations, they love it. Everybody else is like, nah, we're good. We don't want to get involved in a war in Iran. We don't want to go fight and die for Israel. Boomers do, because boomers aren't going to get drafted and boomers are not going to go in. So it should be noted that this is a visible split, and Carlson has kind of taken the mantle because he's the most prominent figure, and I don't like him, right? But even Steve Bannon is coming out on the side of, you can't do this, man. This is going to bog down the America First agenda, and you're going to, your entire second term will be bogged down in war. You're going to lose the House in the midterms and probably lose in 2028 if we're looking at it from a political standpoint. Because why would you trust the MAGA? Why would you trust J.D. Vance? Because one thing about the MAGA was making America great, and how is going to fight, even going in and supporting Israel with airstrikes, is a loss for the MAGA movement, because it shows that your foreign policy is determined by a foreign nation and not by what is good for America. I'm sorry to say it that way, but it just kind of came out. We're doing support strikes. Well, that just means the Israelis can go off and do whatever they want, and the United States will, tuck its head down and be like, okay, and go and do whatever their bidding is. It's essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy if they do it. And that's the problem. Now, I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope that this doesn't happen. But the fact is, Trump called the guy who can't shut up has called a lid. They called a lid. He ain't talking to anybody else tonight. Right here from disclosed.tv. Trump not expected to speak tonight. White House calls a lid. I mean, I know the guy just turned 79, but really? We're going to start with lids now for him? And I think the fact that he got back into office and, all these other kinds of things and the problems he's had with immigration, he might start he might be getting tired. It might just be a lot for him at this point. He's got a lot of energy, but he may be starting to slow down, and this may just be something that he's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Fine, whatever. We'll do support strikes for Israel. Let's try to end this thing. Let's try to get this thing taken care of. But I know that a huge faction of the right do not want to do it. And all the neocons, the Lindsey Grahams, and all these other people cannot wait to. And so it's sad to see this take place, because I think Trump got caught. I think Trump got caught by the Israelis, and now he doesn't know how to get out of it. And I know, and if you think I'm wrong, please beat me up in the comment section. It's fine. Say, Rick, we're not going to war. It's not going to happen. They're just talking tough, and it's not going to be anything too far. But when you have Cenk Unger, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right, from the Young Turks, effectively arguing America First positions, the game is cooked.
Of Israel, who's been occupying the
who planned the attack and who supported the attack on October 7th.
Why don't you let them go? Why don't you let a foreign people go? How much do you want to oppress and humiliate and murder them? Now you're going to murder Iranians. And by the way, Ben, I think you forgot. You're an American, not an Israeli. Act like an American, not an Israeli. What are you, a foreign agent? Why are you working for a foreign government? Why don't you care about American interests?
I don't work for a foreign government.
We got no interest in this war.
All right.
I have an interest in people being able to live a life without fear of bombs coming into their backyard.
The crazy thing is, Israel has been doing this to Gaza for 2 years. Wasn't that the thing? Israel had to flatten Hamas. And whatever they needed to do is they needed to flatten Hamas in any way, shape, or form by taking it out. That's why they were going to make it the Mara Gaza Strip. And they had to level it. And now we're going to turn around and be like, well, the Israelis don't want bombs coming into they don't want the bombs coming into their neighborhoods. And that's where a lot of MAGA people are like, are you blanking kidding me?
Hitting their apartments, hitting their homes from a terrorist organization. Iran is a part of that,
Gaza,
and you know it.
And all of the Middle Eastern neighbors of Israel. They live in fear of Israel, the terrorist state attacking them 24/7.
Israel doesn't go on the
all
offensive.
Israel
They
ever does is attack their neighbors.
Last time I checked, Israel was the one who started this current conflict. They are the ones who did a preemptive strike on the Iranians. And everybody just kind of memory hold that whole thing.
And take their land.
All right. Time out.
Because here we go again with the neocons, just like they did with the Iraq war. We're going to liberate the Iranians by dropping a bomb on their heads. And once we murder them, they'll love us and they'll want to get rid of their regime. You can tell all these stories about the regime, and those are true. They're fundamentalists. They're not good guys at all. Saddam was not a good guy. That doesn't mean that we had to invade Iraq and cost ourselves several $1 trillion and over 50,000 Americans dead on behalf of Israel, who at the time called Iraq their #1 enemy, and who had
but that is not what's that is not what's happening.
And in this case, Iran did not attack Israel.
All right, but
Israel attacked Iran. Stop lying. Stop lying. Israel attacked Iran.
Okay.
Iran did not attack Israel.
I am perfectly happy to say
Israel is the aggressor.
They did through their proxies, Piers. They did through their proxies.
Yeah,
Iran
I love how they do the whole thing. We did the proxies, Hamas, and all these other kinds of people. No. Then you take out the proxies. You don't go after. It's just like the absolute nonsensical BS of this whole thing is just, it's angry. It's the warmongers and the war pigs are just they're gathering around, man. It really gets under it
on a daily basis.
I just think when anyone tries to defend
these guys and fund Hamas and Hezbollah, think like you cannot be this dumb. I understand that you're a propagandist for the regime, but you and I both know
I understand you work for Israel, but America First didn't want any wars.
And that's what Cenk said is 100% correct. And when Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks is making these points more effectively than any Republican, the movement's cooked as of right now. As of right now. yeah, it's a little interesting that Hamas pretty much was, and with a little bit of an assist from good old US of A. Let's have fun with this. Hypothetically, Pope Leo the 14th called for a universal crusade of Christian men to take over the Holy Land. Would I go? Yeah, if like 50,000 Christians, 50,000 Catholic men mustered up from the United States and different countries. I mean, yeah, it would be a great idea. It would be a great thing theoretically to think about. It won't, I agree with you, it won't happen, but it would absolutely change the dynamics. It would absolutely change the dynamics. It would make the Henry Cavill meme come true. It was like Israel, Palestine, well, Rome. But it would be a world-changing event to be completely sure about that. But yeah, I would. I say that, but then my wife would probably be like, "No, you're not." my wife would be like, "No, you're not." So, but yes, I'd like to. I'll LARP and say I would. Anyway, this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. So the first part was the MAGA Civil War that has come about because of this conflict. The supposed conflict that is starting to gin up because of this Iranian conflict. The MAGA Civil War is taking place because of that. And so, Trump from Breitbart News touts total control of airspace, says the U.S. knows where the Ayatollah is hiding. Now, some of you may shake me off on this one, and I get it. And I actually understand what you're saying in this regard, that Trump may be talking tough. Trump may be talking tough in an attempt to get the Iranians to stop what they're doing. The problem is, even if the Iranians stop what they're doing, will the Israelis? I think that's a question that can be asked. Will the Israelis stop? That's really the problem. Yeah, we can probably get the Iranians to stop pretty quick, but what about the Israelis? The Israelis, the first night of the attacks, they're like, we're going to keep going until the whole thing's destroyed. We're going to keep going until the whole thing's destroyed. So when you say they, who are we talking about, Bellator? The Italians, the Iranians, or the Israelis? Which one are we? When we say they, just be more specific for me so I can either agree or agree some more. So President Donald Trump announced we now have complete and total control of Iranian airspace, and that the U.S. knows exactly where the Ayatollah is hiding. And of course, when Trump posted out everybody went, what do you mean we? Who's the we? When did we become part of this conflict? Was it, I thought it was the Israelis that were doing this. How are we doing this now? So Trump's announcement came in a string of Truth Social posts. We now have total control of these skies, which everybody kind of went, what do you mean? Iran had good sky trackers and other defense. And then Trump just kind of, says they have a bunch of good stuff, but we blew it up because we're America. That's essentially what his first statement said. Nobody does it better than good old USA. And then Trump said, these United states know where Soleimani is located, which I guess he's just kind of doing the, do what you've got to do. The Israelis, it's the Italians. So yes, it is what it is in that regard. Yeah, it's a great question to ask. How much money is it costing to send the 24 refueling aircraft, the personnel, and the fighter jets, and all that other stuff to help America's greatest ally? What do we get out of it? And I know people will say, well, once the Iranians get a nuke, everybody's going to get it. Isn't that the same thing you guys were saying about the North Koreans? The North Koreans have had a nuke forever, and yet other countries haven't been. And we know the North Koreans are bad dudes. We know the North Koreans are bad dudes, and yet these nukes have not gotten out of that country. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Beat me up if you think I'm wrong. But what about that statement? The North Koreans have a nuke. The Pakistanis have nukes. The Pakistanis Pakistanis have nukes. You don't think those guys, you think they got super control over those nuke sites? Really? I could say something really bad, but I'm going to try and keep this show friendly. You really think that, the Pakistanis have nukes, the North Koreans have nukes? So when people are like, we have to get rid of, once Iran gets it, it's over. I thought after North Korea got it, was going to be over. I thought the Pakistanis have it, it's all over. Right? Y'all worried about this. London's going to be a majority Muslim country within 100 years. You're going to invade the crap out of that country? So I'll say that again. England will be a Muslim majority country within 100 years. Are we going to invade them at that point? Is it going to be okay when England is controlled by Muslim majority and they have access to nukes? I'm just asking. I am just asking if this is the way, if this is the motivation that is being used. Now, of course, people that are smarter than me, and that is the majority of you watching, will say those are straw man arguments. And maybe they are, but those are the arguments I have right now. Why is this? My Rumble tracker went down. There we go. All right. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but he's safe there. We're not going to kill him, at least for now, but we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention. And then he tweeted truth, whatever. Unconditional surrender. Well, that went quick. That went pretty quick. So it is what it is in this regard. But it's just absolutely crazy. And this is the stuff that, Trump never went this far with other negotiations, which is why people are more worried in this case. So when you have others, even louder with Crowder, we're not going into World War III, guys. And they gave us a bunch of reasons why we're not going into World War III. And you know what? Louder with Crowder is probably right because they have a better research team than I do. Because you know what my research team is? It's me. So they might have better research team and better analysts than me because this is just me putting the show together. And, other people on X are saying it's kind of crazy to think that we're going to go to war or anything else like that. I don't know. There's a lot of people who are going, especially as some of you have noted that Trump dissing Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi, he people that he went to bat for with Tulsi Gabbard, in as far as, we wanted somebody like Tulsi Gabbard I don't even like Tulsi Gabbard. And this is the stuff you have today. I don't care what she says. Trump disses his own national security or his own national intelligence director. President Trump dismissed an assessment on Iraq's nuclear capabilities made by his own national director of national intelligence when asked about the situation. He told reporters that he doesn't care, essentially. And so you've always said you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think they were getting one? Very close, because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building them. He says, I don't care what she says. I think they're very close. So Trump's even dissing his own team, his own cabinet. So, she's probably gone too. If they do go to war, and I'm saying if, I don't have anything that says they will or won't. If they do, she's out. She's got to go. She's got to resign. He's literally tossed her aside. And you'll get John Bolton or you'll get somebody else as the new director of national intelligence. And that's another thing that's going to crack the MAGA base. Right? The fact that, no, she didn't criticize him. She made a report a couple months ago in March. She's like, yeah, Iran doesn't have any nuclear weapons and they don't have the capability. They don't, like, it just said over here. She said that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care what she says. I don't care what she says at all. And so if he's going to toss her under the bus, what does it matter any of us say? The posts come as Trump returned to Washington, D.C. on Monday from Canada, where he was at the G7 meeting. On the plane back, he gaggled with reporters where he believes the Iranians are very close to having nuclear weapons. When asked what would be better than a ceasefire, he said a real end. Now, people are probably just saying, Rick, relax. It's just Trump talking tough. That's it, man. This isn't an indicator of war. He's just saying, he's just being a tough guy. He's always he's always postured in this manner. And he may be, right? When he says stuff like this, everybody's got to get out of Tehran now, immediately, like now, President Trump sent shockwaves through the world with a stark warning as the fighting intensifies between the Israelis and the Iranians. Get out of here with this trash. This is trash too. Get out of here. The president cut short a visit and he said the urgent development came as Israel and Iran trade heavy attacks. The situation has gotten worse. And then Iran, Iran should have signed the deal. We all talked about that one. And he's just pretty much saying that Iran, get out of everybody needs to get out of Iran now. Right? Trump declared that everybody should immediately evacuate in this post. I don't know why he did that. On Monday, Trump appeared to threaten Iran, saying they should have signed the deal regarding this nuclear option. And so this is the stuff that makes people nervous. This is the stuff that is making people criticize Trump, which is bringing out the ire of the Laura Loomers. And I'm sorry if I mention anybody else's name in relation to her. I'm not lumping any of you in with her, except Mark Levin. You're an absolute psychopath. So that's just it is what it is in that part. Yeah, people bring up the Soleimani thing, but the Soleimani thing was not done by the Israelis on correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did the Soleimani strike happen in Iran? I thought it happened in a different country. And that was a strike against one guy. So there was a strike against one guy. It wasn't on physical property in Iran, and it didn't take out multiple people like this one did. So it happened. Soleimani was in Iraq. Okay. So I'm getting information that he was in Iraq. So he was in a different country. This kind of stuff happens all the time in the Middle East. Guys get kind of dead. And, that's not as much of a big deal as striking the nuclear facilities, killing multiple agents or multiple ranking officials within the Iranian government. And so that's what I believe is the difference here between the two. So Trump put a lid on it tonight. You've got different people saying that the strikes are going to happen Thursday. We're on the road to it. There's the problem with X right now is there's so much dumb stuff being shoveled onto it that it's hard to parse out all the information from it. But we'll see. So the conflict seems to be escalating. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say there's going to be a war tomorrow or any of those kinds of things. I do feel like, based on how I am tracking this, and I could be wrong, and let's be real, I hope I am. I hope I'm dead wrong. I hope nothing happens. I hope you can come on here and be like, haha, Rick, you're an idiot. It didn't happen. I'll be like, yes, I was an idiot. Thank goodness I was. Thank goodness I was. Because I don't want to see this take place. I don't want to see this happen. It just seems the tone and tenor of Trump has changed. The posturing has changed. And as Steve Cunningham has talked on News from the Pew for a long time, the U.S. has had Iran and its crosshairs for a long, long time. A long time. So we'll see how that goes. All right, we're going to get through our next two stories here on RickCast. These two are not heavy stories, so we shouldn't be on here for too long with these, but we wanted to make sure we talked about the MAGA Civil War. We wanted to talk about the coming Iranian conflict. So we, and I say we because the audience, the comment section and myself have been chronicling the coming of AI and its complete and total destruction of us and our working abilities for a while now, a couple weeks, couple months, more months-ish than weeks. And this story just completely helps that. So Amazon says it will replace its workforce as AI replaces its human employees. Amazon CEO Andy Jasser indicated in a recent employee memo that the company's adoption of generative AI technology will lead to a decrease in its overall corporate head count in the coming years. Jassy explained that AI-driven efficiency gains and automation of tasks through AI-powered agents are driving this workforce reduction. Amazon employs 1.56 million people as of March of 2025, 350,000 in corporate jobs, and already uses AI in inventory, customer service, and product listings. They have these little robots, and I know because when my wife was working at a smaller company, Boston Dynamics had these robots that could work in warehouses where they could go under the pallets and pick the pallet up, and it could carry like 50 to 100 pounds, and it could carry, and Amazon just came in and bought those. And they're like, yeah, we want those, and we bought them. And that's pretty much been the beginning of their AI stuff. And it makes sense that Amazon would come in and say, listen, AI's, as we've talked about, AI is going to take away a lot of these entry-level jobs, a lot of these corporate entry-level jobs that a lot of people have right now. And, you know, like the grunt work in the distribution centers and other places, they can't get those yet. But that's the first place will be the white collar jobs that AI will destroy. Jassy highlighted Amazon's investments in over 1,000 generative AI services, stating these technologies completely transform possibilities, blah, 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 blah. This AI-driven change suggests a shift in job roles, requiring fewer employees for some tasks and more for others, reflecting the industry's trend towards automation, which, just as we have talked about on this show time and time and time again, that the technology is here, that AI technology is here, whether we're talking about entertainment, whether we're talking about factory work or corporate work, more than factory work, paralegal jobs, right? If you're studying to be a paralegal, I hope you get your paralegal job pretty soon, because AI is going to wipe that entire industry out in about 2 years. In about 2 years, the entire idea of being a the entire idea of being a paralegal will be gone. Maybe smaller firms will keep people on just because they can't afford the AI stuff or they don't trust it. But eventually, you'll have AI doing everything except like dotting the I's and crossing the T's and actually doing the work in the actual courtroom. You'll still have humans to do that. But the like entire legal practices, you don't need 2 or 3 paralegals anymore. You just need one software that can, maybe you need one paralegal to like file the things, but you know, you go to your AI and be like, get all the case information for case file 1515 and put it into folder, you know, the debriefing folder, and then it'll do all that for you. It's going to get to that point, and we're starting to see more and more companies and more places be like, yeah, by the way, this is going to be eliminated. Oh yeah, 500,000 entry level jobs are going to be gone. So I hope you got a good job. Or, you know, honestly, as Steve Cunningham and I have talked about, this is really a setup for the UBI and pretty much the pod living. When I say pod living, I don't mean like a literal pod. I mean people just staying in their homes all day, you know, ingesting streaming services and doing these things. I mean, Brian, when we talk about AI farmers, really the idea is robots automating, doing the automated robots doing the farming, and maybe you have one human to make sure the machines are working. Yeah, AI is here. It's too late. It's like we have talked about. They have it, and they've just kind of held back on it. They've kind of just held back on it because they don't know what to do with the population. You know, in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and I don't think you're going to wait that long, by the way. But you have, you're going to have people that have been used to, going, you know, playing video games, living in RoboFlex worlds and all these other kinds of stuff. People who are in online communities, they're going to be used to it and they're going to be fine with it. They'll be accepting of it as long as they're able to do stuff. And it's going to be interesting. Well, we've talked about the fact that your labor jobs, your construction jobs, there's going to be, I think unions will fight off the AI for enough time, because what corporations will do, like Ford and GM and those kinds of places, will say, listen, we'll keep you guys in the plants, but we're going to use AI to shed all the corporate jobs. That's what I think the compromise will be for the next 10 years, 10, 15 years, will be, listen, we're not going to get rid of the manufacturing jobs, which is why Trump has been trying to get manufacturing jobs back here, to be like, oh, you lost your job, but you can go make iPhones. You can at least go do something. And so it's one of these things that they're going to say, listen, corporate jobs are gone. Nobody has corporate jobs anymore. You want to be a lineman for electricity. You want to be a plumber. You want to be a barber. You want to work on a line. We'll go back to that. Maybe some places will do tax credits for farm work, right? If some states are smart. I mean, farms are already subsidized out the hill, but I'm just saying, maybe they'll say, listen, you can get robots, but we'll give you an extra tax credit if you hire workers, like actual American workers, to pick these kinds of things. So that it's going to be the question of how much AI are you going to allow into the sphere, and how many jobs are you going to allow corporations to take? Because I think there's a lot of negotiation going on behind the scenes. Like, hey, you can't get rid for Amazon. I'm sure people are going, hey, yeah, get rid of the corporate jobs. I don't care. You can't get rid of the 15, because you just built 15 distribution centers in my state promising jobs. You can't come in and get rid of them. So you got it. Plus the distribution jobs, the factory jobs, the warehouse jobs, they cost the company less than the corporate jobs. If you think about that, the reason why the manufacturing jobs, the labor jobs, these things will be more acceptable for companies to digest is because they cost less than the corporate jobs. The corporate jobs, your average salary is in the six figures, and your six-figure guys on the lines are just your senior heads. Everybody else is making, they're not making terrible wages, but they're not making earth-shattering wages. So there's that thought. So that's how I see the compromise going forward with AI. You're going to see a lot of corporate jobs getting slashed. So I hope you have some kind of, now state jobs aren't going to get slashed. Let's just be real. State jobs aren't going to get slashed because they're the ultimate jobs program, even though the DMV should be automated by AI tomorrow, right? If we're going to automate any agency, can we just automate the DMV tomorrow and just call it a day? I think we could all get behind that, because everybody at the DMV, we could do that. Unfortunately, I think you're going to find a lot of things by the end of Trump's term. A lot of things that you didn't vote for are things you're going to have to get anyway. And this war, this conflict that we're all hoping doesn't happen in Iran, just may be the first of all of this kind of stuff. So it's something we need to at least be on the offense for, and not turn the other way. A lot of people are turning the other way and be like, it's not going to affect me. It's not going to be a big deal. Don't worry about it. It will be. Just be ready for it. All right. RickCast, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we're doing. Well, that is not like that here. that has not been my experience at the public service, DPS, down here in Texas. So maybe Idaho will fight to keep their DMV working. Here in Texas, we could automate every single DPS office, and I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care, right? I would not care at all, because my experience at the DMV has not been great. All right, last story of the day. Speaking of AI, one last gasp of the Hollywood elites is this: Midjourney made the perfect target for Hollywood's first AI lawsuit. So, Disney's lawsuit against Midjourney, which is an AI image generator, on June 11th was hailed by creatives as a welcome development, if long overdue. The Writers Guild of America, which went on strike partly over AI 2 years ago, congratulated Disney and Universal, which joined for the suit, for coming off the sidelines. Others were similarly effusive. Wonderful news, said Matthew Butterick, an attorney who sued Midjourney on behalf of independent artists in January 2023. I'd love to see Hollywood getting engaged in what they think is the most important intellectual property issue of our generation. The lawsuit marks the first time major studios have sought to enforce their copyrights against an AI company, but the suit takes on one small company. Midjourney has 11 employees for relatively egregious violations. I think what they're trying to do is essentially set an example at this point with going after a smaller company like Midjourney to try and get precedent. What they're trying to do is what everybody else is trying to do, which is they're trying to stave off as much AI dominance as they can for now. And so Midjourney was a popular one, but it's also a smaller one, and they could probably bully it into getting some precedent, which is what they're looking for. In general, studios would like to have their cake and eat it too, said Ben Brooks, former head of public policy at Stabilize AI. They're zealously protecting their IP from even a hint of AI infringement while using that same technology to cut production costs. Disney, at the behest of its general counsel, Horacio Gutierrez, made the first decision last fall to confront Midjourney as a shot across the bow of the AI industry. Midjourney brought in $200 million in revenue last year, making it big enough to pay the studio's attorney fees as they prevailed. And this victory also sends a message to Google and OpenAI without them having to face those two in court. Because what they're really trying to do is they're trying to figure out Disney, Universal, Sony, these big IP factories are trying to figure out how they can get away or what they can do creating their own essentially AI streaming platforms. Meaning eventually there's going to be DisneyTube. I said this at the beginning of the show, but I use DisneyTube just because it's easy. There's going to be DisneyTube where you log in and you pay a fee of $5, $5.99, and you can use their entire catalog to create AI stories, images, comic books, whatever. You got to pay for it. Universal will have the same thing. Sony will have the same thing. Warner Brothers will have the same thing. And what they're trying to do now is set the boundaries and the lines for where AI can be used. It can't be used with Midjourney. It can't be used with Google. You can use AI, but AI is going to be in-house. You have to use our in-house AI generator and not like a VO or something else that everybody's talking about. And I think the one thing that's going to help the studios in the short term is this stuff is expensive, and these lawsuits are trying to make a point to push back on potential AI use by smaller creatives in order to set the stage for, oh, well, you got to use the big companies. It's not that Disney and Universal or Warner Brothers or any of these others have a problem with it. They just have a problem with somebody else making the money from it. Once they can find a way to squeeze money out of this, then they'll be fine with it, as long as they can squeeze the money out of it. I don't know if Disney's going to lose this suit because Midjourney doesn't have the lawyers to fight it. Plus, AI IP law is still in its relative infancy, and they're looking for precedents like this to push back against AI onslaught. So they may be, and that's why I think they're going after these companies to try and set these precedents against them. All right, one quick piece of housekeeping news. I'm very happy to announce that Owen Schroyer of InfoWars has agreed to let me interview him tomorrow night, but it's going to have to be recorded. So tomorrow's show is going to be 5:30. We're going to start at 5:30 instead of 6, so I can end a little bit early so I can set up the interview for Owen. And then after that, I'm going to probably drop the interview on Friday. The way Friday's show looks like it's going to be set up is we'll do like a quick around the horn, if you will, on the stories of the day. And then the rest of the show will be dedicated to the interview with Owen Schroyer from InfoWars. So I want to give a huge shout out to Magdalene once again. Magdalene Rose, my amazing social media manager, who is really working hard for me, and locking in this interview with Owen Schroyer from InfoWars, which I will be doing that interview tomorrow night, and then we'll have it set up and drop it on Friday. So tomorrow's show is going to be at 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern, so I can set up and make sure I get this interview with Owen all set up and ready to go. And then I will drop that interview on Friday. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of RickCast. Please do me a favor on the way out. Wherever you are, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Do all the fun things to help this show grow. Comment section has been great on YouTube, and I thank you guys for joining me and hanging out with me. The Bar Rats have been successful as always. I will talk to you tomorrow, 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern here on RickCast. God bless, and until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.
Yeah, Wikipedia? Using Wikipedia as your source of information.
Wrong button.